Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm glad to have you here, and hopefully, I'm going to be able to help you out a little bit related to the Nittany AI challenge and some of the opportunities that are available to you right now. Um, this is going to be a pretty informal presentation, so if you want to jump in at any point, ask any questions, talk, anything of that sort, you have the ability to unmute yourself. So feel free to either raise your hand virtually or to simply unmute yourself and jump in and ask a question. I'll be perfectly fine with that as we go along. Um, the whole point of tonight is to give you all the information, answer all the questions you might have about the Nittany AI challenge, and help get you prepared for it and make certain that you go into it with no reservations, no hesitations, and definitely no fear. So we'll go ahead and get started. And like I said, for those of you who are continuing to join us as we go along, feel free to unmute yourself at any point and ask questions, or just jump in the chat or raise your hand virtually, however you'd like to do it. So let me start by introducing myself. Hi, my name is Brad Zdenek. I'm the innovation strategist with the Nittany AI Alliance here at Penn State. I have the pleasure of running the Nittany AI Challenge. It was about, oh boy, what was it? 4.5 years ago now that we created this program here at Penn State, and we have been lucky enough to have great success with it so far, both in the solutions that we've had created during the challenge, as well as in the careers and opportunities that our participants have gone on to after the challenge, just through the benefit of going through it and the things that we do in it. But one of the things that is really important to me, and you're going to hear this later on when we start getting in the nitty gritty of how you do this. One of the things that's really important to me is that you always start with why. So whenever I do something like this, I'm talking about the challenge with people. One of the things I always want to start with is why should you care? Not what is it, not exactly what you're how it's going to happen and the dates and all of that, but why should you care to begin with? Um, so I'm going to go through just a couple facts and figures for you to kind of set the stage for everything else that we're going to be talking about here. Um, First, this is a very positive number, especially if you're an individual who's an IST or comp sci or statistics, mathematics, somewhere in an AI field. Um, right now, we're looking at about 144,000 AI-related jobs that were posted in 2019, the latest data that I had available for this. And there were about 26,000 people looking for those positions, 26,000 people that identified themselves as AI specialists, looking for those jobs. That's a good job market. That's a place that I would want to be, especially starting out my career. However, not everyone has AI specialization, specific AI skill sets. And that's where the numbers start to get a little bit more bleak. Um, for instance, this one is one that is often put out to scare people about the AI future, if you will. Uh, and it's that about 14% of the global workforce by 2030, about 375 million people, about 35 million people specifically in the United States, will need to retrain by 2030 because of AI and automation. Now, some people look at this and they say, "Oh, well, these are lower skilled jobs. These are individuals that are not the doctors and lawyers." But in reality, many of these jobs that we're talking about here that are going to be automated by AI actually are in some surprising fields. Uh, Law is a good example. My brother is actually a real estate attorney. He has started to make his way out of real estate law because so much of the work that he does is being automated by AI powered tools. And he sees the writing on the wall. And in fact, already he's seen market forces at play that has forced him to reduce his rates because other firms are able to process more clients in a shorter period of time using AI tools than he was capable of doing on his own before these tools came online. Um, In addition to this, you see jobs such as radiologists, whose fields are being absolutely revolutionized by the application of artificial intelligence. So yes, are many of these jobs truck drivers that are going to be forced out of their existing careers by self-driving vehicles? Yes. Are some of these individuals on production lines? Yes. But we're also talking about lawyers, doctors. We're talking about marketers. We're talking about individuals in business. We're talking about individuals who code, individuals who are on the front line of software development, especially as some of these AI tools come online that can automate some of those processes. But I am not a doom and gloomer, because the way I see it is that when I see that word retrain, I see that as an opportunity. That is an opportunity to make certain that our students coming out of Penn State come out with these skills already ready to be able to perform within this job market and get the top jobs that they want at the top pay that they want. Because AI is not going to replace these people. AI is not going to replace a doctor. But where I argue, a doctor who uses AI is going to replace one who doesn't. And as you can see on this slide, insert whatever career you want in there, and you're going to see that same effect. This is backed up by other evidence. Deloitte in 2019 said that about 20 to 30% of jobs by 2030 are going to be super jobs. And these are jobs that require not only specific domain skills, but also a combination of technical skills and soft skills around those. Now, this cuts both ways. If we look at this as that first slide and saying, hey, I've got AI skill sets, I'm set. Well, as more and more people begin to graduate with those AI skill sets, it is going to become increasingly important that they have more than just those AI skills, that they also have the domain specific skills and the application skills for artificial intelligence. It is not enough just to understand what it is, the nuts and bolts of it. As you see from this quote by the head of Tech Systems Data Analytics and Insights Group, he identifies that the real need is not just individuals with technical skills, but people who know how to apply these technologies. So, what does that mean? You're a Penn Stater. You're going to be graduating with a degree at some point. You're probably going to be looking for a job. How do we make certain as Penn State that we are graduating you with the greatest chance for success in your career? How do we make certain that you're going to be getting that top salary and living the life that you want to lead? Well, we need to make certain that we're graduating you with some experience in artificial intelligence. That does not mean, based on all the slides I just showed you, that does not mean that everyone has to be a coder. Doesn't mean you need to be a statistician. Does not mean that you have to be a math whiz and be able to develop these algorithms. Whether you are in business, whether you are in graphic design, whether you are in marketing, whether you're in education, in medicine, it doesn't matter. What you need to have is exposure to AI and AI tools and a basic understanding of how it works. If you're on the more technical side of things, you need to understand the technical applications of artificial intelligence and how to apply those to real world challenges. So how does Penn State do that? Well, one of the ways is his challenge. That's why you're here tonight, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. Um, so the Nittany AI challenge, you've probably heard of it if you're here. Um, the Nittany AI challenge is this challenge where we offer $50,000 in award money for teams of graduate and or undergraduate students to develop solutions to the challenges we face in our world. The idea of AI for good. Um, we break it down into these four pillars you see over on the side: health, education, environment, and humanitarianism. But honestly, if you use an AI to improve the world or the world for the people in it, then you're doing AI for good. So those are kind of the four pillars for it. But in general, what you're trying to do is you're trying to look at the world around you. And all of us have had this experience, probably more recently than ever before. This is probably more meaningful than it's ever been when I've given this talk. But we've all looked around us in this world and thought, things could be better. It doesn't have to be like this. What could I do? What could I impact? What could I affect to make this world a better place? And then within this challenge, we challenge you to create that solution, to actually make it, to build it, to bring it to reality. Take that seed of an idea and grow it. Um, how does it work? Uh, well, and you can see all this on the website because I'm going to kind of fly through this to get to the really important stuff. But how does it work? It basically works like this. There are three primary phases to the challenge. Right now, we are in the idea phase, where a large number of teams from across the university are going to be coming together and forming and coming up with their idea for, what is that challenge that the world faces, and what's my solution for it? How am I going to approach it? Um, One big thing you could notice on this screen, we just announced, and you might have missed it, I don't know, but we just announced on Monday that we are extending the deadline. um, Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and with the change in the start dates for everyone and the extension of the virtual period, I thought it was too much to ask everybody to have their ideas in by January. I believe it was January 29th before, so we gave you a 2-week extension. So the new due date is by February 12th. Uh, you are going to submit to me a essentially a maximum 1,200 word proposal. So it's 4 sections, 300 words apiece. And the 4 sections are: what's the challenge that you see? What's the problem? Second section: why is it a problem? Don't just tell me what it is. Explain to me, why should I care? Third, what's your solution? And then finally, who's your team and what's your technology? So you're going to basically be breaking down the very basics of that. And like I said, each section is only 300 words. That is not much space at all. So you're not getting into a ton of detail at this phase. What you have to do is you have to convince me that this is something that's important and that you have a viable solution for this. If you go onto our website, and I'll point out some of the links in a little bit, you'll see everything, including the review criteria for the idea proposals. So you know exactly how we're going to be ranking and rating your proposals when they're sent in. So you can look at exactly how many points go to each one of the criteria, and with full disclosure on all of that, so you can look at it ahead of time. But essentially, we will look at all those proposals to give you context. We generally get between 70 and 100 submissions. I don't know what it's going to be like this year because of the craziness, uh, but we're kind of still expecting somewhere in that range. So between 70 and 100 proposals will come in, and we will pick 20 of those to move forward. Now, what that means is we will give 20 teams $500 to say, nice job. You had a great idea. We're excited to see what happens. We're going to start giving you some more supports. We're going to start helping you out. Here's a little bit of money just to get you excited. Okay. Um, if you don't get picked in that top 20, that does not mean that the competition ends for you. We still allow any team to continue on and build a prototype regardless of whether or not they are picked in that 20. Now, you will not get the $500. You might have a little bit more limitation on the resources you get from us, but I will do everything in my power to support you if you are interested in continuing on, regardless of whether or not you're picked. If you are picked, let's be positive and say you're picked in that top 20, you move forward, great job. You'll have about 6 weeks from the point that we announce the winners of the idea phase to when the prototypes are due. You'll have about 6 weeks to build a proof of concept slash prototype of your idea. Depending on how complex your solution is, you might build a proof of concept. If your solution's a little bit more on the simplistic side and it's more about interface and interaction, then you might get all the way to building a legitimate prototype. But you'll build something that is a functioning, very minimal functioning version of your idea. And you will do that by March 31st. On March 31st, you will submit a YouTube video or you'll submit a video of your pitch for your prototype that you built, showing us how it works. And we will pick 10 teams, and those 10 teams will get $1,500 grants and even more support from us. Same idea. If you don't get picked in that 10, you can still move forward. You just won't get the money at that phase, but you'll be eligible for it in the next phase. Then you spend the whole summer. We work together. I give you supports. You meet with me biweekly for a little bit of mentorship and help. And over the course of the summer, you build a fully functioning, minimal viable product of that initial seed of an idea you came up with back in February. And you submit that. And what you'll actually do then is you get up on stage and you present it in front of a group of reviewers, really high level people that come from industry, from entrepreneurship backgrounds, startup culture. Our highest level individual was was an advisor to President Obama. Some years ago in the National Reconnaissance Office. So really, really high level people are your reviewers at that phase. And you're competing for a pool of $25,000. So you can see the stakes build up as you go along, but there's a huge amount of opportunity throughout the challenge. One of the biggest obstacles to getting started that most people have is, well, what am I going to do? What do I build? You know, what's the challenge that I'm going to address? Um, and I'll give you some examples. I think it might be helpful to see some examples of what some of our past teams did, just for inspiration. Uh, but before I do that, I want to tell you about one additional thing we have this year, which is called the IBM Watson Advantage. You are allowed to use any artificial intelligence platform, tool, approach that you want in this. If you're not on the technical side of things, then this is where your technical team members would be making these decisions. But IBM is partnering us with this year because they are very interested in seeing new and innovative solutions in the health domain. So IBM is sponsoring the health pillar. And basically, if you use IBM Watson tools and you do something in the health pillar, you are eligible for the IBM Watson Advantage, which means that each phase they will get to pick a team that, regardless of your review scores, will move forward just based on their selection. So essentially, it allows you to completely bypass the review in totality, and they will move you forward to the next phase, and you'll get the money and all those types of things. So the IBM Watson Advantage, if you're motivated by and interested in doing something in health, if you're open to using the IBM Watson platform, this is a really good idea, something you should really think about. And it might kind of put the thumb on the scale a little bit, particularly about which software you might use or what AI platform you might use. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there so everyone is aware, because I don't know if everybody's been seeing that on our website. It may be buried a little bit, and I think maybe a lot of individuals are missing that. So what I also want to do is, like I said, I want to give you some examples of solutions that have come up in the past from some of our top teams. So last year, or I guess just a few months ago now, in September of 2020, we had our celebration event and completion for last year's teams. And our top 10 teams did this little thank you video for our sponsors. But the thank you video was a really good way of kind of giving a quick one-sentence description of each one of our teams. So I thought I'd play it for you here right now. It takes 2 minutes to play this so you can see what those teams are and maybe give you a little bit of at least an idea of what some of our top teams were in the past, and maybe even inspire you as to some ideas. So let me play this real quick for you.
Our technology facilitates a connection between nonprofits and prospective volunteers to ease the process of serving local communities.
And we have created an app that harnesses the power of artificial intelligence to help people with visual impairments navigate indoors and find objects.
We've created a mobile app that uses sentiment analysis through AI to significantly reduce online bullying by social media users becoming more aware of their social impact and their footprint.
And we have created a solution to sustainability that aims to reduce large-scale energy waste across the industrial sector.
And we've created a tool for healthcare practitioners that recommends individualized treatment plans for patients suffering from major depressive disorder.
And we are aiming to aid users in conserving and reducing energy costs by regulating their heating and cooling system, lighting, and other device usage.
Our aim is to build an advanced and novel AI-based engine that would convert a long chronicle video into a short summary text along with analysis. Through this, we would like to reduce the impact of negative, inappropriate video content on the minds of content moderators.
And we've created a tool for genetic and AI-based diagnosis and medical cost estimation that forewarns users about their chances of getting afflicted by a disease in the future based on their genetic makeup.
We've created an artificial intelligence tool that can be used for assessment and improvement of child literacy to ensure that every child has what is needed for higher education.
Our core objective is focusing on pixel classification of both biomedical and micro-CT imaging.
So that's our top 10 team overview from last year, and you can see a really diverse group of solutions that came through. The top team, the one that ended up winning the most money in the end, ended up winning $17,000 all told, was a Nian Sapo team. Nian Sapo was the team that created the English language literacy app for individuals in Kenya and Ghana. And they actually, with the money, were able to fund some continuing development. And they're actually using their tool right now in schools to help with English language literacy in those countries. And they've got a number of students who are using their platform right now. We also funded a few other teams at $7,000 total, including the AI Guide, which was a tool where you could use a cell phone to be able to navigate around a building, which was really interesting solution. And you saw we had a good mix of other types of solutions in there. But the key is that each one of those teams was just like you. Each one of those teams was comprised of individuals who were undergraduates or graduate students here at the university. In fact, I think all of our top winners were undergraduates, but undergraduate or graduate students here at the university, and many of which had no experience and no background in artificial intelligence. In fact, many of the teams had never even touched AI before starting the competition. What they were able to do was to use their skill sets and some Google Fu and lots of YouTube videos to be able to learn the skills that they needed just in time to develop the solutions that they had, as well as leveraging the wealth of resources that we bring to the table to help out, including the ability to interact with engineers from companies like Google and Microsoft and Amazon and IBM to get some help in developing these solutions. So one of the toughest things that I have to do is to convince the people I'm talking to, the students I'm talking to, that hey, this could be you. Just because you don't see it right now, just because you might be focused on, I don't know how I'd ever build a minimal viable product. We help you get there, and we help you along the way. And all of this is great. standing up there, you see in the photo, standing up there with the big fake check with the excessive zeros on it, that's phenomenal and that's great. And obviously that's a motivator, especially in the beginning. But the challenge is bigger than that. Um, and one of the things that I think is the most important outcome of the Nittany AI challenge is not definitely not the money, and is not necessarily even the thing that you build, uh, because very often that thing will fade away in time, and maybe someone ends up using it, like Nian Sapo is a good example, but very often that thing might fade. But what doesn't fade is the experience you get throughout the challenge, and the experience that you get that you can then put onto your CV or your resume. This is a quote from one of our students, from a winning team from 2 years ago, who ended up getting her dream job at Lockheed Martin. Um, and she said something that I have heard a large number of times now, which is that the experience in the challenge opened up doors for them to get the jobs that they wanted, to get the interviews for the jobs that they wanted. Now, I always push back on them and say, the challenge didn't do that, you did that. But the challenge is a platform. It is a way for you to step up and show off what you are capable of and what you can do. And it helps you build critical experience that employers are looking for. And if you can leverage something like the challenge to get uh, a higher salary at your start of your career, say you were able to leverage it just to get a 5% increase in your salary, your starting salary, that compounds every year of your career, where 10 years down the road, you are so far beyond where you would have been if you had not been able to do that at the beginning. And at the conclusion of the challenge, whether you've won a ton of money or not, this is one of the things that we really help you with. You have an entire session with me, where we talk about how to leverage the challenge on your LinkedIn profile and your resume and things like that. We've got a closed alumni group in LinkedIn that we use to tell you about careers and job opportunities, and for you to build a community of individuals who are leaders in the field, expand your network. We do everything we can to help you advance your career. So, well, the money is great to get you excited right in the beginning here. This is really what's of value. So, hopefully, I've convinced you. Hopefully, you're going, yeah, enough, Brad. I'm on board. What do I do now? So what are the first steps? Well, the very, very first step that you have to take is to build a team. This is a team-based challenge. Can you win this challenge with a team of one? Maybe. It's definitely not against the rules. You could. I think you'd have a very difficult time doing it. Can you win the challenge with 3 of your best friends who are all in the same program as you as a team? Yes, you have a distinct possibility, but it's an uphill climb. A high-performing team is a diverse team. And very often, the greatest challenge our groups have, or our participants have in the very beginning, is finding people with diverse skill sets. So we built a tool. You'll see the URLs up there at the top, nittanyai.psu.edu/teams. And if you go there, you can sign in and create a profile with your skill sets and your interests listed. And when you have an idea, which is kind of your second step, if and when you have an idea, you can put your idea in here and identify what types of skills you still need for your team. So let's say, for instance, you are a comp sci major and you feel pretty comfortable with your technical skills. You know Python, you've got a little bit of AI experience, you know how to use an API, you feel pretty comfortable there. But the idea of creating a user interface is a little intimidating to you. And the idea of getting up on stage at the end and presenting this and writing a proposal scares the heck out of you. So, but you've got an idea. You come into the tool, you put in your idea, and you tick some boxes under the what skills do you still need on your team. You would tick a box that says graphic designer or UX designer. You would tick the box that says communications, presentation skills. You would tick the box maybe that says project management because you're not the most organized person on the earth. And when you tick those boxes under your idea and submit, the tool then looks at all the profiles for all the people who've created profiles and say, here are 4 individuals that might be a good addition to your team, and helps you to try to build that high performing team. So even if you think you have your team, look around at the people that are in your team and say, are we missing any skill sets? At the very least, this is kind of my shorthand of a high performing team. You need obviously an individual or 2 with technical skill sets at the very least. So you need people who are going to be able to figure out that technical side of things. Second, you need somebody who is a project manager. You need somebody with the skill to make certain that things get done, that you meet deadlines, that you have a plan, and that everybody is contributing to the team. All of you have probably been part of teams before where one person ends up doing the bulk of the work and dragging the rest behind them. You don't want that in a challenge like this. So you make certain you have somebody who with project management background that could help with that and make certain that people meet their responsibilities and deadlines. You also need somebody with a UX, UI, or graphic design background, somebody who has that artistic eye, who understands how to make something that is consumable, because in the end, you're building a minimal viable product. People are going to be using this thing. You want it to be usable. And a person with that eye is critical to have on the team. And finally, you need somebody who can communicate. You need someone who is able to write a proposal, who's able to present up on stage, who is able to convey your ideas. Now, that does not mean that you need 4 different people with 4 different skill sets. Maybe you've got one person with 3 of those skill sets. Maybe you've got a graphic designer who's really organized, can do project management, and also is a great communicator. Boom, tick, tick, tick. You got 3 boxes ticked in one person. That's great. But what's important is that across your team, you have people who can step into those roles. And very often, your immediate first team that forms is missing some of that. That's where the Teams tool comes in. I highly encourage you to get in there early and to try to find people to round out your team. This year, for the first time, it is also required that you create a team in the Teams tool, because you will be submitting your proposal through this tool. In the past, it's been emailed to me or submitted through an online form. This year, ideas are submitted through this Teams tool. So you're going to have to do it anyway. Might as well do it now and get a head start. Couple pro tips before we do questions. This is the first and very much most important. It's bolded and it's a higher size font than any of the rest of them. I don't know if any of you know Simon Sinek. He had or has a really popular TEDx video on YouTube that's called "Starting with Why." If you've never watched it, I highly recommend you watch it. Google or go into YouTube and search for "Starting with Why." You'll see it. But one of the biggest mistakes I see teams make is they start with the technology. They say, hey, this technology is interesting. What can I do with it? And that's a wrong start for a few different reasons. Number one, it often leads to a solution that doesn't have a problem. So you're creating something and it has little use in the real world. It also often gets individuals working on things that they're not passionate about. And this whole thing, as you saw earlier on, is an 8-month process. Now, it's not full-time, of course, but it is 8 months, and that requires persistence. And if you're doing something that doesn't excite you, if you're doing something that doesn't motivate you and get you up in the morning, particularly during that summer when you're probably doing an internship and you've got other distractions, that's when teams fall apart. However, those teams that come together with a vision, understanding why they're doing what they're doing, because either it's something personal or because they met the people that they're going to be impacting or continue to interact with those people, whatever the case, when they start with why, they find greater levels of success. So don't start with the technology. I know the technology is shiny and flashing, can get you excited, but start with the why. Find the problem first, and then look at how the technology can be applied to it. I often say, and I will say this again and again throughout the challenge if you participate, this is not a technology challenge. I know it's called the Nittany AI challenge. I know it's got AI right in the name, but this is not a technology challenge. This is a solutions challenge. This is an application challenge. It happens to use AI as the technology, but it is not about cutting edge, brand new, novel applications of new AI. Sometimes the best solution will be a chatbot. I mean, you don't get much more low frills AI than that. But if that's the best way of creating the solution, and you're creating a great solution in that chatbot, that's what you should do. And that team could do really, really well. So start with the why, then move to the tech. Beyond that, I also highly recommend that you take the 3.5 to 4 weeks between now and when the ideas are due to find faculty or staff to be mentor or an advisor for you. Find subject matter experts. Once you've figured out that thing that motivates you, maybe it's maybe you've got experience with a family member having cancer, and if it had been identified earlier on a CT scan, that individual might have been saved a tremendous amount of pain or possibly even the mortality. So maybe that's the thing that motivates you. You are a comp sci student again. You probably don't know a ton about CT scans and imaging. You might be able to figure out the data, but find somebody to help you that understands that subject matter area. And this is where you can leverage me. I can connect you up with faculty and staff mentors and advisors from across this university. There are a ton of people that would love to help you. Especially in the field of medicine. I've got a number of individuals who are just waiting for students to work with on some of these challenges. So if you cannot find the individual on your own, reach out to me and I will be happy to help make some connections for you to get you that faculty or staff mentor or advisor, or maybe somebody from industry. It's just, faculty or staff are closer, probably a little bit more willing to help out. But anyone that's a subject matter expert would be great to bring online. Make certain that you put together a team. I just talked about this, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but make certain that you get that well-functioning, high-performing, diverse team together in the beginning. It is much easier to do it now than it is to try to plug all those holes once you've already started to go through the competition. I've been through this with a number of teams in the past, and we have lost weeks and weeks of time just trying to find somebody to add to the team. It's a distraction you don't want once you get into it. And then finally, talk with me. I am here. I am your resource. And quite honestly, I love it. I love doing this. Reach out to me. I will talk through your idea with you. If you just need somebody to bounce ideas off of, I'm your guy. If you just want to have somebody read your proposal before you submit it, I'm right here for you. Whatever you need, if you need connections, I can do that for you. But I cannot do that for you if you don't reach out to me. I cannot do that for you if you don't tell me that that's what you need. So please do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know what you may need. I'm really quickly writing my email in the chat. My email is now in the chat. You can feel free to reach out to me at any point. I'm also in Teams. So if you use Teams, you can get me there. So that's it. Those are kind of my pro tips for getting started. I want to also final thing, last thing before I open up for any questions that you might have. I want to tell you about a couple opportunities that are coming up. Some as early as tomorrow. If you are looking for help in building a team, so yes, we've got the Teams tool, nice automated process, but if you prefer kind of a face-to-face type thing, tomorrow, the Linda Feltman and Ann Hoeg from the Entrepreneurship Minor here at Penn State are running a team building event. Unfortunately, I don't have the URL, a short URL to go to. They didn't put out any sort of event announcement. So once I'm done with the presentation, I'm going to copy and paste it into chat. But essentially, it's an event that you can go to, and we're going to talk about all the challenges at the university and then provide an opportunity to meet people and form teams. So if you want kind of a virtual face-to-face, a Zoom face-to-face, you can do it then. We're going to use breakout rooms and have people mingle, and it'll be a good way of finding some people to add to your team. So that's tomorrow. That one is from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock tomorrow night. On January 21st, I'm going to run a short event, half an hour total, about how to write a proposal. So just going to be kind of my tips and tricks on how do you write a proposal that's going to get you noticed and is going to give you the best chance for being selected in that first phase. On January 22nd, we are holding an event focused on education. So if you are interested in doing something in the education space, but you don't know what, we're going to have a large number of individuals from AI and education talking about what the big challenges are, especially global education. And so you can kind of get some ideas and interact with experts at that event if you're interested. And you can see the details for these last three events at our website, nittanyai.psu.edu/events. And then finally, we have a student organization that is associated with us, Nittany AI Student Society. On February 11th and 12th, they're going to run office hours. They will bring winners from past years of the challenge, and they will have open office hours where you can give them your proposals and they will give you feedback and help you kind of one-on-one from people who have done it, people who have won, and help you with your proposals before they are due. So the proposals are due February 12th at midnight. So understanding that everybody kind of does things a little bit last minute, they're doing that event on the 11th and 12th. So you can get that done 4 to 5 on both of those days. And again, that is not up yet on our website, but it will be in the next couple days. And you can find that at nittanyai.psu.edu/events. So that's it. That's all the stuff that I have. That's all that kind of I wanted to put out there and talk about. So what questions do you have? What could I help with at this point? Is there anything that's not quite clear, or kind of any operational or tactical details you might be interested in? And again, you can either put it in the chat, and all of you have the ability to unmute as well. Okay, so I won't give the kind of details on the question, but I'll answer the broader question in it, which is, what about the kind of multiple pillars? If you've got an idea that spreads across multiple pillars, do you need to focus it in? Do you need to stick to one and try to focus in the idea a little bit? It's one of the reasons why I said when I showed that slide, it's one of the reasons why I said, as long as you're doing something that helps people or the world or the animals in it, you're doing AI for good. The pillars are artificial. The pillars are to help you get your head around, what do I mean by AI for good? Because if I just said AI for good, you'd be like, well, what does that mean? One of our one of our famous examples is for the first few years of the challenge, I cannot tell you how many submissions for how to find an empty bar stool at the bar that we used to get. Because the idea was improving the educational experience. And from the perspective of the submitters, that was improving their educational experience. So the idea of the pillars is to give a little bit more specificity and help people understand what AI for good is. AI for good is not finding an empty bar stool at the pillar at the bar. AI for good is helping in the field of education or in the field of health or humanitarianism or the environment. And so that's what it's intended to do. You don't have to be overly concerned about fitting into a pillar. Some of the best solutions will go across. So no, don't worry too much about that. The one exception I would give to that is when you do have to tick a box, and I can't think of a time off the top of my head, but if you ever do have to tick a box within any of our submissions and you're in the health pillar and you want to be part of the Watson Advantage, make certain you tick health um, as that pillar. But anywhere that I've ever created a form, I allow multiple selections there because that's just real world. Things don't fit nicely in a single box. So no, don't worry about it. Prototype and an MVP. Yes. So what is the difference between a prototype and MVP? What are kind of the characteristics of each? So very often the way I describe it, and I get into this in much more detail when teams are selected and we start the process. But very often the example I give is if what you give me in your idea is is that you're going to build a race car. Okay, you're going to build this thing, goes 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. That this thing is going to have slick lines and be beautiful, and everybody's going to want it. It's just this gorgeous race car. That's what you tell me about in the idea. Okay, you're painting that vision for me, that thing that you're aspiring to. The prototype is not a car with only one wheel and no seats and doesn't function. That's not a prototype. A prototype of that would be a skateboard. Okay, it serves the same function as that final thing that you proposed for me. It gets me from point A to point B by expending less energy and in a quicker way. Obviously nobody's going to look at that skateboard and think that's a race car, but you can see that it is a point of evolution from nothing to that race car. A minimal viable product is maybe a Toyota. You know, it has 4 wheels. It gets me from point A to point B. It's got an internal combustion engine. It's getting closer. It is a stage of evolution getting us toward there. But you're still not giving me that race car. I'm not expecting you to give me what you tell me in that initial idea by the end of the challenge, because you're giving me the ideal state. The minimal viable product is the minimal version of that. It's the bare bones version of it. The prototype just shows me that you can do what you say you're going to do. It is the very basic functioning version of it. I would give much more specificity on that, but it depends largely on what you're proposing. For some people, that first thing you give me is not even necessarily a prototype, it's a proof of concept. It is a command line function that outputs text on the screen that I can read, that is in numerical form, that shows me the likelihood of something, the statistical probability of something occurring. That's not even translated into something usable for an end user yet, but it's showing me that the technology can do the job that you want it to do. For others, if it's a chatbot, but it's just not, it might break very often. It doesn't do much yet. I can interact with it, and if I follow a script, it works, but if I deviate from that script, it completely falls apart. The minimal viable product would be that chatbot fully functions, and that I can give things that are unscripted and it still works for me. And when it fails, which they're all going to fail, it fails gracefully. Okay. A prototype or a proof of concept, that first stage thing, very often does not fail gracefully. An MVP is expected to be something that you could put in front of a user that's out in the public, that you could launch it on the App Store, and somebody could use it and they would be happy with it. So we'll get into much more detail as far as what that looks like when we get into the competition and I see what your idea is. But that's kind of a basic example of what the difference is between a prototype and an MVP. Okay, that's a very good question. How do we know that an idea does not clash with something that we have seen in the past? That is something, so if you go to our website, nittanyai.psu.edu, click on programs, and you'll see Nittany AI Challenge there. One of the things you can do there is you can see our past winners, and there are descriptions of past winners. So you can obviously look at that and get a good idea of what our top teams were in the past to make certain that it's not a perfect match. The other way is obviously reaching out to me. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about what some of our past submissions have been and whether or not yours is unique or not. But honestly, I wouldn't be terribly concerned about this. Um, Everyone has their own take on things, and even if you're addressing the same challenge, you're going to approach it in a new and unique way, unique to you and your team and the way you think. So I am not that worried about you replicating something that's been done in the past. There are a few exceptions to that. But that's something that you can reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to look at your idea and give you some feedback and help you think through iterations of that idea. One of the things I tell everybody is your first iteration is not the one you're going to go for. You should never submit your first idea. Push yourself. Iterate on that 5, 6, 7 times. That 10th time is going to be your winner. Okay. So push yourself on that idea and try to come up with the best solution you can for that proposal. Okay. And that's something that I can help you with by asking you very pointed questions and forcing you to think that way. So if anything else comes up, if you have any other questions, please feel free to email me. Make certain before I click end here that you click on that link if you're interested in going to the team building event tomorrow. Most important websites, make certain you just know nittanyai.psu.edu/events has all the details for these events that are coming up, /teams has the teams tool, and /challenge gets you into all the details about the Nittany AI challenge, the review criteria, and all those types of things. So yes, thank you so much for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. Do not hesitate to reach out to me. I would honestly be offended if you didn't. If you wanted to reach out to me but thought you were going to bother me or something like that, that would hurt me personally. So don't do it. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I will help you in any way you can, any way that I can. And I look forward to seeing your ideas. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.